AWS Pricing 101. There are two types of pricing models. These are CapEx and OpEx. CapEx basically just stands for capital expenditure, which is where you pay upfront, and it's fixed sunk costs. So it's like buying a server upfront, or buying a whole bunch of servers, or buying network, etc. And if you think about a startup, you wouldn't have been able to afford buying physical servers and storage and all of that as an upfront cost because you didn't have any money when you're starting up. And that's why prior to public cloud, people would have to go out and raise capital and get investors on board to even get the ball rolling. OpEx stands for operational expenditure, which is where you pay for what you use. This is where you're paying for things as you use them. And that was the great thing, because you only pay for what you are using. This is what startups usually use, because it's cheaper for them. Now let's take a look at the fundamentals of driver's cost. Compute charges you on an hourly basis. You can use the compute and the processing services at a very low price and also only pay for the resources that you have used. And again, when you talk about time constraints, if you are using those services only for 1 hour, you'd be paying for that hour only. Moving on, we have storage. AWS charges you per the gigabyte, that is even if you use very little space. You'll be paying for that space, and since it is almost as less as 1 GB, that is you have to pay only for 1 GB. What this does is you don't have to worry about scaling, because if you were using more resources, you would be paying for those resources according to your scale. Lastly, we have data transfer. Again, AWS charges you per the gigabyte, and it charges you only for the data that goes out. AWS has built up various pricing models, so you can move further on and look at different pricing models according to your own requirements. There are three basic pricing models, which are as follows. First, we have pay-as-you-go. AWS has a very flexible pricing model where AWS only charges you on an hourly basis plus for the compute capacity and the resources which you are using. So if you need a particular resource for, say, 1 hour, then you would only pay for that 1 hour. Next up, we have pay less as you use more. As far as AWS is concerned, the more services you use, the less you have to pay, or the less you will be charged. You have a chance of saving up to 70% of your total cost, and that is a very nice feature to have. Lastly, we have save when you reserve. Now, if you know how much resources and the compute capacity that you're going to use in the near future, you can simply reserve these services in advance. In that case, AWS charges you fairly less compared to other models. There are further 3 types within this model, so let's take a look at each one of them. So for pay less when you reserve, these are the different pricing policies. The first one is no upfront. In no upfront, you don't pay anything upfront before you reserve the instance. But since there is no advance payment, the costs are higher than there would be for the other 2 options. The second one is partial upfront. In partial upfront, you pay a partial amount when you are reserving the instance. The costs in this model are less compared to no upfront, but it's still more expensive than full upfront. And then lastly, you have all upfront or full upfront. In all upfront, you pay the whole amount when you are reserving the instance, and the pricing is the least it can possibly be since you're paying the complete amount all upfront. When it comes to pricing models, AWS offers several pricing models depending on the product. These include the following. The first one is on demand. This allows you to pay a fixed rate by the hour or the second with no commitment. The second one is dedicated instances. This provides you with a capacity reservation and offers a significant discount on the hourly charge for an instance. The contract terms are 1 year or 3 years. Third, we have spot instances. These enable you to bid whatever price you want for instance capacity, providing for even greater savings if your applications have flexible start and end times. Lastly, you have reservations. Physical EC2 server dedicated for your usage. Dedicated hosts can help you reduce costs by allowing you to use your existing server-bound software licenses. There are some free services that you need to remember when it comes to using AWS. These free services are as follows. Amazon VPC, Elastic Beanstalk, CloudFormation, Identity Access Management, Autoscaling, OpsWorks, and Consolidated Billing. Though these services may be free, any resources these services may create as a part of using these services will be charged. Only the usage of the service is free. AWS budgets versus Cost Explorer. AWS budgets allow you to set custom budgets to track your cost and usage from the simplest to the most complex use cases. With AWS budgets, you can choose to be alerted by email or SMS notification when actual or forecasted cost and usage exceed your budget threshold. With AWS budget actions, you can also configure specific actions to respond to cost and usage status in your accounts, so that if your cost or usage exceeds or is forecasted to exceed your threshold, actions can be executed automatically or with your approval to reduce unintentional overspending. AWS budgets are used to budget costs before they are incurred. AWS Cost Explorer provides an easy-to-use interface that lets you visualize, understand, and manage your AWS costs and usage over time. AWS Cost Explorer provides you with a set of default reports that you can use as the starting place for your analysis. From there, you can use filtering and grouping capabilities to dive deeper into your cost and usage data and generate custom insights. Cost Explorer is extremely easy to use and understand, and it is used to explore costs after they've been incurred. Support levels and plans. This is an important element to understand from the exam perspective. There are 5 support plans provided by AWS, and the default support plan is the basic one. This is the support plan given to all AWS accounts. The basic plan, as it's provided by default, is free of charge. Moving up to developer, the charges are either $29 a month or 3% of your monthly AWS usage, whichever works out to be the greater amount. Moving further up to business, the charges are $100 a month or a percentage of the usage in your AWS account, whichever amount is greater. Further down the line comes the Enterprise On plan, which is either $5,500 a month or, again, a percentage of your AWS usage, whichever works out to being the greater amount. Lastly, we have the most premium support of the lot, Enterprise. You get all the bells and whistles of support features here for either $15,000 a month or a percentage of your AWS usage, again, whichever works out to being more. The basic plan provides no explicit technical support, and you're pretty much on your own to go and find the solutions to the technical issues that you are experiencing. Moving on to developer, you can contact AWS via email during business hours regarding technical problems that you are experiencing with your AWS. Further down the line, if you have business support or greater, then you have 24/7 support via email, chat, and phone. You only have technical account managers with enterprise plans. Otherwise, you do not have one. On the basic support level, you cannot open support tickets or cases. On the developer plan, a single person may open any number of cases. Upwards from here, any number of contacts can open any number of tickets or cases with a business plan or better. Moving on to response times and case severity, the basic plan does not receive anything here. The developer plan gives you access to general guidance and system impaired guidance. Upwards from there, the business plan gives you production system impaired and down support added on. One more step up the plans and you have business critical system down support with enterprise plans. Resource groups and tagging. So what are tags? Tags are just key value pairs that we associate to AWS resources. These tags contain metadata, which is just data about data. Tags can be inherited sometimes if we tag certain resources with existing tags. Tags may contain specific information given the resource that is being tagged. For example, an EC2 instance tag will hold the public and the private IP addresses of the EC2 instance. An RDS instance will have the database engine information inside its tag, and an ELB instance tag will contain the port configurations of the ELB. Now let's take a look at resource groups. Resource groups just make it easy to group your resources together via their assigned tags. Resources that share tags can be grouped together. Resource groups contain basic information such as the name, region, department, or ID, etc. Using resource groups, you can apply automation to resources tagged with specific tags. For example, we can stop all the EC2 instances in California using a resource group. Resource groups, in combination with AWS Systems Manager, allows you to control and execute automation against entire fleets of EC2 instances all at a single button press. AWS Organizations and Consolidated Billing. AWS Organizations is an account management service that enables you to consolidate multiple AWS accounts into an organization that you create and centrally manage, and it's available in two different feature sets. So you've got consolidated billing, and then you've got all the features. So why would you need multiple AWS accounts? Well, if you think about an organization, maybe they've got like 20 different developers, and maybe those developers each have their own developer accounts. Maybe human resources have their own AWS account. Basically, there's lots of reasons why organizations would have multiple AWS accounts. Let's look at an overview of what AWS organizations and consolidated billing will look like. So this is the main account. This is very similar to the root account terminology that we use in identity access management. So this is the base account. Then we have all these different organization units or organizational units. So this could be the finance department, this could be our developer, this could be production, this could be test, etc. And then we have all of our AWS accounts in these organizational units. And we can apply policies to these organizational units. So we could say, okay, this is my main developer account. I don't want them doing anything with EC2 for some reason. I want everything to be serverless. So I'm going to apply a policy to this organizational unit. To our developer organizational unit, preventing them from provisioning EC2 instances. So this is how organizations work. Now, when you have organizations turned on, you are going to get the economies of scale. So with organizations turned on, you will get consolidated billing as a part of that as well. So the more your AWS accounts use, the more economies of scale you are going to get, and you're going to get cheaper rates. This is AWS organizations. Let's take a look at how consolidated billing works. You can turn organizations on and just have consolidated billing, and if you do that, it's going to work like this. So you've got your paying account. This is similar to your root account. Then you've got your multiple linked accounts. So it could be your test and developer. It could be production, it could be HR office, etc. And each of those different AWS accounts have different bills, and the paying account pays those bills, and it gets to realize the economies of scale. The paying account is independent. It cannot actually go in and access the resources of the other accounts. So in your paying account, you can't go in and turn on EC2 instances in your test and dev, for example. You can't block test and dev from being able to provision resources. If you need to do something like that, you need organizations itself with the full access rather than just with consolidated billing. So the advantages of consolidated billing include one bill per AWS account. It's very easy to track and charge and allocate costs, so you can see exactly what your developers are spending. You will get the volume pricing discount. These are some best practices within AWS organizations. You should always enable multi-factor authentication on your root account. So that's where you use Google Authenticator, and you should always use a strong and complex password on the root account as well. And then finally, the paying account should be used for billing purposes only. You shouldn't really be deploying resources such as EC2 instances or S3 buckets into the paying account. You need to go and create separate accounts for that. AWS Partner Program. There's two different types of partners on the AWS Partner Program. You can either be a consulting partner or a technology partner. A consulting partner designs, architects, migrates, manages, and builds customer workloads and applications on AWS. A technology partner provides the hardware, software solutions, or connectivity services that are either hosted on or integrated with the AWS cloud. To become a consulting partner, you need the following number of employees with the certs listed for each level of consulting partner that you can be. So to be a select partner, you need 2 people with the practitioner cert, 2 people with the associate cert, and 2 people with the professional or specialty certs. For the tech support, you need 4 people for practitioner and associate, and 6 people with professional or specialty certs. And lastly, when it comes to Premier, you need 10 people each for practitioner, associate, and professional certs. 1 employee with all the certificates is counted as 1 for each cert that they are certified. So if you have 1 employee who has the practitioner cert, the associate cert, and the professional cert, they will be marked down as 1 for each of those certs. AWS cost calculators. When it comes to calculating your costs on your AWS actually provides you a few different calculators to help you calculate your costs when you're working in AWS. The first option is the AWS Simple Monthly Calculator. This is basically just a website that's hosted within an S3 bucket. So what you can do here is you can go here and you can take a look at all of the different resources, and then you can add in your own AWS resources and figure out the cost of what's going to cost you how much. And the second option you have is the AWS Total Cost of Ownership Calculator. Now, AWS helps you reduce total cost of ownership by reducing the need to invest in large capital expenditures and providing a pay-as-you-go model that empowers you to invest in the capacity you need and uses it only when the business requires it. The TCO calculators allow you to estimate the cost savings when using AWS and provide a detailed set of reports that can be used in executive presentations. The calculators also give you the option to modify assumptions that best meet business needs. Calculating a billing cost. Calculating costs for your AWS infrastructure can be a tricky ordeal, but guess what? AWS has a calculator to help you out. Sometimes you have to be careful because that money will run out before the end of the month. Luckily, the AWS calculator is there to help you understand where your money is going and maybe even have a proposal for you. Let's take a look at this calculator right now. So working with AWS Billing Calculator is extremely simple. First thing we want to do is we want to go to calculator.aws. So when you enter that, you should make it to this page here. And on the right side, you should see this button that says Create Estimate. Once you're here, you can select the service that you want to calculate how much it's going to cost for you to run. In this case, let's just go with S3 because that's a simple service and there's not really much you can do to go wrong when setting up an S3. So let's configure an S3 bucket for ourselves here. So let's pick all of this information out here, and then at the end we're going to see how much our S3 bucket is going to cost at the end of the day. So we can just put a description here. This description is not going to be for the S3 bucket itself. This is just a configuration or description for the estimate cost that we are doing to find out how much this S3 bucket is going to cost. So we can call this skill curve S3 evaluation cost. We can set the region to whatever we want, and then we can move down to the S3 storage classes. Of course, which S3 storage class we use will affect our cost at the end of the day. So I'm just going to go with standard here so we can see how much a standard S3 bucket is going to cost us with the ability for data transfer. Moving down, we have S3 standard. We get these options as per our S3 standard bucket. So let's say that we want 30 GBs on our S3 bucket. So we can say that we have 30 GBs on our S3 bucket per month, right? So below that we have put, copy, post, list requests to the S3 standard. We can put any amount of requests here. It doesn't matter. So we can say that we are going to put like maybe 1,000 requests or so in here. It's not a big deal. And then we have the get, select, and all other requests from S3 standard. We can put any amount here too. This is normally going to be like a huge amount. You might have like 1 million requests here. So since we're going to just add a 0 to, because we're going to get like millions of requests here, it's really difficult to make this assumption as to how many there's going to be. And we're actually going to come back and set this up to 1 million to see how that's going to affect our S3 bucket later on. So let's say the data returned by S3 select is what, maybe like 10 GBs in a month. And that the data scanned by our S3 is like 20 GBs in a month. Why not? So now we can even go here and show the calculation. So it's going to show you exactly how much it's going to cost you for this S3 bucket to be set up. And it shows you exactly how that's measured out for you. So let's put our get select requests into the million. So let's say we have 1,000,000. So even if you have 1 million get select requests, this moves up to $1.14 to run per month. And this is just one of the many ways that you can use the AWS pricing calculator or the billing calculator to find out how much you are going to be spending when working with different services within AWS. Like 10 GBs in a month. And that the data scanned by our S3 is like 20 GBs in a month. Why not? So now we can even go here and show the calculation. So it's going to show you exactly how much it's going to cost you for this S3 bucket to be set up. And it shows you exactly how that's measured out for you. So let's put our get select requests into the million. So let's say we have 1,000,000. So even if you have a million get select requests, this moves up to $1.14 to run per month. And this is just one of the many ways that you can use the AWS pricing calculator or the billing calculator to find out how much you are going to be spending when working with different services within AWS.
Creating a billing alarm demo. In this lab session, we will be creating a billing alarm, we will be creating an SNS topic, and we're gonna set up our threshold to $10. So billing alarm is basically an amount that you set. Let's say it's going to be $10, and it will send you an alarm as soon as your AWS bill goes over that for the month. So this is a lab and we need to go into our AWS management console. Okay, so here I'm in my management console, and then we're going to search CloudWatch. Now CloudWatch is exactly what it sounds like. It's a way of monitoring your cloud or watching your cloud. Go ahead and click on CloudWatch, and that will launch the CloudWatch console. And then what we want to do is we're going to go ahead and click on billing. So what we need to do is create an alarm. So what we are going to do is, you can see here we've got our currency in US dollars, and the period is going to be every 6 hours. It's going to check our account, make sure we haven't gone over that. Here we have got two different threshold types. We have got static and anomaly detection. Anomaly is basically for detecting anomalies. We just want static, and then we are going to say whenever estimated charges is greater than, and then you enter in here the number $10, then it's going to do an alarm. Just go ahead and hit next. And then what we need to do is to create an SNS topic. So the topic in here, we'll just call it as billing alarm. And in here, we're gonna enter our email address. Enter your email address and make sure you enter a legitimate email address because you will have to confirm this. Enter an email address and make sure it's the correct email address because you have to confirm this. So if you see your inbox of the email that you have provided, you will receive a link for which you need to click on the link and activate it. Once you have done that, just go ahead and click on next. In here, we're going to enter our alarm name. So again, we're just going to name it as billing alarm. And my alarm description should be send an email if my bill goes over $10. Go ahead and click on next. And then this is just a preview of all what we have done. And you just need to scroll down at the very bottom and click on create alarm. At the moment, there is insufficient data. That's because we have said, hey, check my account every 6 hours. So depending on your own account, it may take a little bit of time for this to turn into OK. You will now get an alarm every time your bill goes over $10. If your current account has a billing above $10, then you may receive an email notification. This completes our lab. We saw how you can get automatic notification if your account goes over like $1,000 or whatever value you want it to be. An alarm uses SNS topic to send notification.